Let us begin. Welcome everyone to Shade and Lighting QA Week 1, basically online lecture. Jazz hands. Sure. You may notice there are two Tonys in charge of this class, Tony Saxon and myself. Tony Saxon is the course director. He's in charge of the whole ship, but kind of focuses more on the campus, especially this month. Ooh. Sorry about that. Especially this month, the campus class is quite large, and they need me to keep an eye on things online. So, but I am Tony Bagsby, so I'm the one you're going to be doing the most interaction with. You'll also see Frank help out with one of us at the Open Lab. You might see Ari help out on Discord, and Tony Saxon help out on Discord as well. So this is a bit of a sample of some of my work, so you guys can see some of the stuff that I worked on. I really need to find a better picture of Disc League, but yeah, I worked on Disc League. I worked on Tiger Woods quite a bit. I worked on a game called Squee Dogs, and then there's a couple samples of some personal projects, especially since I'm teaching texturing. I need to actually texture this darn thing. It's like Goose from Top Gun. I didn't model that. I did texture it. The pilot dude. I didn't model him, but I did texture. But yeah, here's some of the games I worked on. I worked on Disc League. I need to find a better picture of Disc League. But you may notice I have a lot of experience in games, and that is true. Most of my experience comes from game development. That's kind of where I used to live, and I still live there. I do things with the indies of Orlando. I'm a co-founder of Indienomicon. I run the Corgi Art House, which is my little contract art organization. So occasionally when I get a nice beefy contract, I'm all set up to contract some people in and work on a game, get my name in. And we work out of the Orlando Game Space, which is our co-working space here in Orlando. So I'm very involved. Lots of things going on. Let's talk a little bit about the lecture. So I don't know how your other teachers like to roll. I typically like a lot of class discussion. So many of you have heard of my hilarious cookie system. But the general idea is that I encourage you guys to actually unmute and answer questions. If you do, I will reward you with a picture of a cookie that you get for answering your questions. It's a silly joke. I know some people don't appreciate it, but it's really meant to make the lecture more fun and give you guys kind of motivation to be interactive. And then on top of that, please, if you have your computer open and you have Maya open, that's great, but definitely have a physical notebook, something that you can actually write notes in and draw if you must. A lot of times when I take notes, I tend to draw things that I need to remember visually what they look like. So I know a lot of people are like, notebook, that's for chumps, but notebooks are actually quite useful, especially when it comes to retaining information. Like they've actually been proven to retain information more than typing it. Yes, everybody is asking because I have the Corgi Art House. If I have a Corgi. I absolutely do have a Corgi. That's not my Corgi, though. That's a random Corgi. That's my Corgi. Of course I do have a Corgi. I wouldn't name my company the Corgi Art House otherwise. Yes, this is all recorded, so you could go back and rewatch it and take notes. But I do recommend that you have notes when you come the first time. And those of you who are watching this video recording, you have no excuse. You could pause the video and go get a notebook right now as I point and nobody can see it. Okay, so delivery dates. Typically, delivery dates are on Mondays unless there's some sort of holiday or something that I'm unaware of. But typically, all the due dates are on Monday. The exception is Sunday for week 4. I actually cannot set the deadline for Monday that week because FSO does not allow me. Previous version of FSO used to allow me to do that. But the reason for this is because I do my office hours on Monday. The weekend is sort of, my weekend time. I spend that with my friends, my significant other, and doing my stuff. I will check in with my email and Kingdom Hearts 3. Not yet, actually, but I will be playing that as soon as I get through Kingdom Hearts 2 again. But yes, I do. I will check in on you guys and come in a little bit, but I'm not going to be available like I am during the week. Your deadlines are set on Monday because I specifically have office hours on Monday from 1 to 8, with a little break where I go get lunch around 4 o'clock. But that means that I specifically have time I'm available to help you guys. So take advantage of that. I'm on Discord. I'll do screen shares. I'll do audio chats, whatever. But I'm available to help you. And that's why your deadlines are on Monday. That doesn't mean that it's a good idea to wait until Monday night to complete your assignments or even attempt your assignments. Ideally, you should be trying to do your assignments and have them completed before Monday. So you should still try and have them done Sunday night. But if you get stuck or if you need help, I'm there Monday to help you out. I also have office hours on Friday, I think, this week. It's the day opposite of Frank's Open Lab. So I'm also available then, so you should have... No, wait, Frank's Friday, I'm Thursday. So I'll be available Thursday, Frank will be available Friday. So you have 2 days there where we can help you out at the end of the week. So, don't wait to start your assignments on the weekend because there is support before the weekend. We don't really do support on the weekend. That's when we have our time. The class wrap-up activity. This is just an activity that I have to remind you to do. It is required. Make sure to do it. It's at the end of the month. It just says, here's what you learned. And go, okay. All right, deadlines. So let's talk a little bit about time management before we talk about deadlines. I'm gonna move my slides around a little bit. I do this sometimes. It's time management. First off, you guys have 2 assignments every week. And for the most part, the second assignment is the most difficult one. I see a lot of people get stuck on the first one and not, they don't come for help. They're just trying to work on it on their own. And they don't start the second assignment until Monday. As I just told you, you don't want to be starting your second assignments on Monday. You want to be done with your assignments on Monday unless you get stuck. Also, then you can post on Concept Share, get critiques, improve your grade. Right? So a lot of times people will, be like, oh, whatever, I can, start it, blah, blah, blah. The second assignment is the more difficult assignment. And you definitely need time to work on the second assignment. So don't assume that because you're got 2 assignments and you're almost done with the first one, you can put off that second one. That second one's going to be tougher. And then just don't forget about the discussions. They do take time. They are 10 minutes. They are graded. And they're kind of like tests, really. The discussions is misleading. I wish we could just call them tests because it's what they are. They're questions. There's 3 questions. And they have right and wrong answers. So they're based on the reading that you guys are supposed to do. So just, and also I typically try and sneak the information actually into the Q&A. So if you're paying attention and taking notes, the answers to the questions are usually in there. Okay, this brings me to deadlines and extensions. So deadlines are an important thing. I want you guys to meet the deadlines. I see a lot of people, especially in week 1, who just sort of ask for extensions off the bat. They turn in their assignments 3 days late. They get 30 points off. This is a critical error. because if you are turning in your first week's assignments late, then you get a late start on your second week assignment and your third week assignment and your fourth week assignment. Basically, you're shooting yourself in the foot before you even start running. Extensions are available. I do understand people have emergencies and real life stuff happens. I'm not going to prevent you from using an extension. If you request one, I will give it to you, but I am trying to advise you to use extensions sparingly. If you are finding that you need extensions in week 1, you will probably have a bigger problem that we probably need to address. Of course, if you have a life emergency, someone's in the hospital, there was a death in the family, these are big things, and I totally understand that you guys need an extension, and we will actually, if you can get us documentation, we will waive the late deduction. Normally, extensions carry a late deduction. This is sort of your penalty for not turning your work in on time. If you were working with a client and you didn't turn work in on time, there would be repercussions as well. So this is sort of a big deal, and I see a lot of students take a laissez-faire attitude to it, so I just kind of want to address this up front. The actual policy for requesting an extension is that you need to email me, your professor, and request an extension. There are a number of things that I need when you request it. I need to know what your section number is. It'll be 1 or 2 this month. We only have 1 and 2. It is not 1902. That is your term ID, and that should still be in your email. Also, I need you to be clear and make sure you're telling me that you are requesting an extension. Sometimes I get very vague responses from people where they're like, I had trouble. I might need more time, maybe. Barbara, what's your question?
If I have to go out of town for a business trip, kind of unexpectedly, sometimes I do freelance and I do this stuff for freelance. Sometimes, as you know, that happens out of the blue. Is that considered an okay extension, the same as like a medical or other emergency? Because that kind of pays the bills to run my house. And I'm not sure, but I've been told it might pop up this month.
Okay, that is something I might have to think about. Typically for that, I would prefer that we have a way that we can be prepared for that in some way so that you can still meet your assignments on time. But I'll have to ask Tony Saxon about that and see what he thinks. Ideally, we still would like you to turn your work in on time for that happening.
Thank you. I know it's not a normal question to ask, but it's one that I came across right around Christmas, but thank God we were on vacation.
Yeah. Okay. That's one I'll have to think on. I've actually not gotten that before, and I've been here for 8 years, and no one's ever had that come up. But that is something. It pays the bills, so we're gonna have to think on that. Oh, the other thing is, and this may sound a bit weird, I need the name of the activity that you are requesting an extension on. If I don't have the section number and the name of the activity, and I'm not aware that you're asking me for an extension, I can't actually give you one. It sounds weird because people are like, well, you should know what I want an extension on. I don't. And with emails, sometimes it's very easy to make assumptions, and I've actually done it before where I gave someone an extension on the wrong thing because they didn't tell me. So make sure you're telling me the exact assignments that you're wanting an extension on. And they're all numbered. So like lesson 1.1, lesson 2.1, lesson 2.2 is the discussion. So if you tell me the exact number, then I know what to give you an extension on. With those things, I will always give the extension. It's just whether or not you get the late penalty. And they're only 3 days. After 3 days, that's it. It automatically gets a 0. Unless there's a life emergency. Then I can be a little bit more accommodating. But I do need that documentation. And as always, in email, make sure you're direct, clear, and professional. In fact, there is a great YouTube or a Linda series on email etiquette. For anybody who doesn't have experience writing professional emails, I highly recommend it because it goes over a lot of things that we don't think about with email. Anyway, here's what your subject line should look like. Your class code, and I'll tell you right now, our class code is GRA 1161-O, and your term ID is 1902. And then you can just put, if you put extension in there, I'm going to know you're requesting an extension. So it's obviously a good idea to be like, subject, extension request. Sweet, I know what you're doing. And then again, your section number will be either 01 or 02. I don't know what it is. I don't know which category you guys are in. So without you telling me, I can't give you that extension. Oh, yes. And again, do not send me files through Dropbox. Send me files through email. Upload things as feedback. Upload things in FSO messages. The only thing that we will occasionally do is ask you to upload as feedback to the activity. Do not do that unless I specifically request it. Otherwise, it's not accepted. So email me. I will reopen the portal for you so you can submit normally. All right. Okay. Now I get to get off my soapbox and be a little bit more fun. Concept share. So as you guys noticed, I put concept share up today. And concept share is kind of meant to be, it's optional, but it's meant to be there for self-critique. So those of you guys who are getting ahead on your work and are done with your assignments before Monday, if you post on concept share, I will go and see that and I will give you feedback. For the first couple of weeks, the feedback, if you're doing a pretty good job, it's mostly going to be, all right, good job. Unless you're doing something really weird, then I'll tell you about it. And obviously, then you can fix it before you do your submission. That's the whole point behind Concept Share. When we get to project 6, all of a sudden, your projects are going to have a lot more freedom in them. That also means there's a lot more freedom for you guys to go completely off the course. But if you are posting on Concept Share, that gives me the perfect avenue to give you guys a critique and call out things that you might be doing outside of the assignment and get you back on the right course. There's a lot of things at that point that can go wrong, but if you're posting on Concept Share, you're getting feedback, we can get you in the right spot. An alternative to Concept Share is Discord. We have a critiques channel. This is an old screenshot. It used to be called Work in Progress. I just started calling it Critiques. But that's a channel that is basically Concept Share. It's meant for you to post your images, and then you can @ me so that I know you posted it just in case I miss you, and I will give you feedback. This has actually recently been working a lot better than Concept Share. You're free to do either one. I will check Concept Share, but I've been getting to people faster through Discord, just so you know. Because I'm on Discord all the time because I use it for my business too. In addition to that, Discord is fantastic. You guys may have noticed several of you were on there today. Discord is sort of a place for you to go to look for help. Sorry. So, yeah, just getting over a cold. I think I got like phlegm or something in my throat. I don't know. So Discord is a place that you guys can go, to look for help. And so keep in mind that I am not the only one who can help you. So if you @ me or @ instructor, I will see that all the time and I will reply back to you. But also there's other people on there as well. There are students, both past and present, who can give you a helping hand and point you in the right direction. There are the other teachers from SAL, myself, Tony Saxon, Ari Edwards, Frank Mignon. Any of those are teachers, but also there are other students that can help you out. Plus, it's a place that you guys can go and just socialize with your other students. I told you guys, those of you in there earlier today, I don't care if you guys are just screwing around in there and talking socially. There's even there are audio chat channels over here. There's one that's the audio chat open lab, which is meant to be, for specifically for school-related stuff. And then I have the Hangout, which is for you guys to go in there and do whatever you want. I don't go in there, so you can do whatever you want in there, and I'm not going to know about it. But the only thing I'd say is keep it professional, because if somebody tells me that you're in there and you're talking about things that are drastically out of line and super unprofessional, you will receive a professionalism doc on FSO. So, just keep it cool. And as I said earlier today, no Kingdom Hearts 3 spoilers in the Discord. I'll be very angry at you if you spoil that game. Yes, 14 years in the waiting. Jesus. It's as bad as StarCraft 2 was. It took so long. So, but yeah, it's meant to be there so you guys can connect with each other, not just look for help. But it is there for help as well, obviously. And we just kind of pushed forward today. Once you guys finish shading and lighting, there will be the Substance Challenge channel that will be available. It's not available to you now. It's locked right now. But for once you're finished with SAL, I'll change your roles to SAL Past, and you can go in there. I'm a big-time Substance fan. I use the Substance Painter and Substance Designer and Substance Bitmap to material quite a lot. And I'm trying to encourage students to continue pushing their texturing skills in Painter and Designer once they get out of shading and lighting. So, all right, software versions. This is important. Okay, so we are using Maya 2018, not Maya 2019. If you are using Maya 2019, you're going to be very unhappy because RenderMan does not work with it. And if you go to look it up on the RenderMan forums, there's a very sarcastic response from one of the RenderMan guys saying, RenderMan does not work with Maya 2019. So Maya 2018 update 4 or higher. If you go to download it now, I think you can only get Maya 2018.5. That's fine. We completely support that. And yes, we are rendering only in Maya. I'm aware that Blender has a capacity for RenderMan. Actually, if I had time, I would pick up Blender because I really want to learn Eevee. Most of you guys who downloaded Maya and 3DF probably got 2018.0. That's what a lot of them get because they don't check the version numbers. And yeah, RenderMan doesn't work for that either. They only work for like version, or only get RenderMan to work for like version 0.1 or 0.2. Because the thing is, like, they make RenderMan, and then a new software for Maya comes out, and guess what? They didn't make it to work with the software that wasn't available to them yet. So obviously they have to go and fix it, and usually the first update comes out pretty quickly, so they don't bother making it work with that. But yeah, if you notice that RenderMan is totally not working, it's probably you don't have 2018.5. And Gabe is pointing out that you can go to the About Maya screen. So you can go over here, Maya, About Maya, and you can see I have 2018.4 right there. If it doesn't have a number, I believe that means that you have 0.0. Although they do this screwy thing because they just launched 2019 where they stop telling you the version numbers. But you can't get 2018.0, so. Substance Painter 2018. We will also be using that this month. It is optional currently, but we will be going into that. I don't cover it in your guys' lectures, but I do cover it in the campus lecture. I actually do the lecture 9 or 10, whichever one it is, where it's all about Substance Painter. I talk about why Substance Painter is great, and how to use it. Where is the information? Oh, I forgot it. Hang on, I gotta do all my thing. Need an incognito window. All right, let's go to. Okay, so see, 1 and 2. That's all you can be in. Okay, so we did change a few things this month. That's not good. You guys don't want to see grading. Luckily, I haven't plugged any grades in, so. Okay, so a number of things. Here's your assigned reading. So if you scroll down, like, we've got hours for how long it should take. So we've got some overviews here. Obviously, here's where you go to register for the Go to Training. Here is the Discord link. Here is the recording of these sessions. Here is the recording of the campus lectures. Now, I want to put this out there. Keep this in mind, guys. I have 2 hours a week to give you information in a lecture format. Tony Saxon has 12. So his lectures are going to have a lot more information in than mine. That means there is stuff that I'm not going to get to. So if you guys are having trouble, please do watch the campus lectures. In fact, very often you will find me pointing to things that I don't cover but are covered in the campus lecture. That's just because I don't have enough time, so I try and get to the most critical information first. But I cannot get to everything. I just don't have enough time, especially in weeks 3 and 4. There's just, for that one, those assignments, he takes multiple days to cover the material, which is great because that means there's more material, but it also means that there's no way I can get to enough information, especially on textures. I barely scratch the surface on textures. But to be honest, that whole week, I could make a whole month-long class out of. Here's some extra videos for lesson 1, and then we've got Disney's Practical Guide to Path Tracing. It's kind of a fun 9-minute video that Disney made talking about how rendering works, which is cool. And it's illustrated. It's got a lot of cool breakdowns. It talks about how light bounces around. The exact sort of stuff we cover in this class. I highly recommend watching this video. We're not going to spend 9 minutes of my small 2 hours of time watching it here today, but I recommend watching it. Here's where you install RenderMan. Here's where you can go buy, not buy, but you can get Substance Painter. Here's an illustration of what your assignments should look like. And then we have the part 3 MyComp. Wait, oh, that's just talking about how to use the bookmarks. Here's part 3, the MyComp, directions on how to do that. And here, this is fabulous. This is our how to use denoise. You are required to use denoise, and this goes over how denoise works. How to turn it on, what it is, how it works. We are also looking to make a troubleshooting document for some common problems that we see people miss. I'll be going over some of them tonight. Here is another link with the denoise workflow. They're right. Oh boy. Things you may and may not do. You can't model for this assignment, not for Comp 3. You can move things around, but this is where all that information is. And then at the end, we have kind of a picture showing you basically what your submission should look like for naming. Please do not actually put last name and first name in there. Put your last name and first name. I actually got somebody turn their final project in like that today, and it was a major facepalm moment. Put your last name and first name in. And also, WW or YYMM is the year and month for the term ID. And that's it. Can we go? No, that's all it's there. And then we have practice 2. You'll notice not much is different. Same sort of thing. I'm trying to look for anything. Oh, here's what the project looks like. By the way, for a lot of these, you get a choice. So for example, choose one. So you do one of these, and then you do one of these. Typically, when you choose this one, then we want you to do the opposite for the other one. Why? That's a little bit weird, because that means you're going to be dedicated to pink. And same here. So if you do the side light, then we want backlight. Just want you to practice. I looked over at the chat and I saw tennis anyone. Okay, so that's my little overview of FSO. Finally, 45 minutes in, let's talk about your first assignment. So this is the kind of the beefiest lecture, because I got to go over like all of the welcome to SAL stuff, and then I have to go over 2 assignments. All right, so number 1, this class is a rendering class. You will be rendering everything. No screenshots, no we're grading Maya files, we are grading renders. So get used to rendering. The good thing about that is all of your stuff's going to look very pretty, because the whole point of rendering is to make the images look fabulous. I don't know why I'm using weird terms, but yes, you want it to look very nice, professional quality. That is sort of the deal that we're trying to get you to do here. This is the sort of way you want things to look when you put them on your portfolio, which is the good thing about this class. We are teaching you how to make stuff look good for your portfolio, which, guess what, you're going to need to do if any of you want to get a job. So we're teaching you kind of the most important stuff here. If you can't get a good render for your portfolio, you're going to have a hard time getting work. Mary, we're actually going to cover a lot of the stuff that's been tripping you up. Because I saw you in the chat. I'm going to talk about exactly what's messing you up in a bit. So to do rendering, we're going to use the image tool. The image tool is what we call kind of like rendering preview. It gets us looking at our stuff to make sure it's good before we tell Maya to do that job that's going to take 10 minutes or so. We want to make sure that we're where we need to be before we hit the launch button. So you don't want to be trying to go to the moon and have the spaceship pointing at a 45-degree angle from the moon when you launch. It's not good. So there's a bunch of tools here we'll talk about. The crop tool, obviously, crop tool is a good tool. The render again button. The wipe tool I'll talk about, but it doesn't work all the time, sadly. It says other, but the toggle background, this is really good because you can select the background and then use the wipe tool to switch back and forth. I will still talk about the crop tool because I think, or the wipe tool, because I think it's important. And then samples. So this is where you are going to live for project 1. The whole point of project 1 is to try and figure out the right samples to use to get a good render. That and actually teaching you guys the process of rendering and how to get around all the weird technical things that would prevent you from rendering. And so samples, generally those numbers for max and min samples, you want to be what we call powers of 2. This means if you take a number and you multiply it by 2, you get a number, or that's the number you get. So obviously 4 is a powers of 2, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1048, 2048, or 1024, 2048, 4096, and 8192. That is the only one I don't have memorized. You'll find that you do powers of 2 a lot in 3D work. So there are 3 ways we are going to talk about rendering, and you guys are going to use all of them. The first way is rendering a frame. So this is a beauty render that you're doing. This is almost as good as doing a batch render, only it does not have denoise. It will take a while, but it is going to give you a fairly good idea of what your render is going to look like. We'll get more into samples. We're going to go through the whole process. I'm just kind of giving you guys some information up front. 10-hour renders, not in this class. We get close to it with Project 5. Set it and forget it. You don't get to forget it, Gabe. So after render current frame, we have the IPR. IPR is kind of cool. IPR is constantly updating. So what it does is it starts rendering, but the second you change anything, it restarts. Goes back to the beginning and starts rendering it again. This is very useful when you're trying to get something just right in like your light settings or your material settings. It's actually not going to be useful for Project 1, but for Project 2 to the end of the month, IPR is awesome. You're going to be using it a ton. Because it means like, okay, this object is gray, but I want it to be orange, more reflective, less reflective, darker orange, more saturation. Each one of those adjustments starts off a new render so you can see what it's looking like. And finally, we have the batch render. So this is what we will be doing for every single file you submit. You have to do a batch render. And what this is going to do is going to go into the menu. It is not going to use the image tool. It is not going to use Maya directly. It is just going to create an image in the background and drop it in your project folder. And for this, we use denoise. You have to turn denoise on. So in your render settings, you have to go to AOVs, Beauty, Denoise, Single Frame. And what is denoise? See all those little black and white speckles? They're a little bit noticeable here, but they're definitely noticeable over here. That is noise. And noise is bad, because noise is not what the real world looks like. Gabe, denoise only works with batch render, period, not the rendered frame. So you see all that stuff. This is noise. Now, we could increase our samples until we get rid of the noise, but that would also really increase our render time. That's what we had to do back in the day. Now we have a denoise filter. Notice the difference. It's significantly better. It kind of like applies like a watercolor filter to your noise. It's interesting. Okay, so I believe my next slide is about Comp 3. Okay, we'll come back and talk about that. Let's actually go over to Maya and let's actually do some rendering. Okay, so here we are in Maya. Let's first set our project. Now, let's talk about setting the project. I have downloaded new projects from FSO. You must always be setting your project, and your project folder will always have all of these folders in it. I have seen people try and be sneaky and get away with just making a folder and just putting like a couple files in there and their textures, and they're like, that's good, right? Not if you want a batch render, because guess what? It's not going to work. So you guys should have been setting your project for every single class you've been in since 3DF. And for those of you who haven't been and you think I don't know, I do know. I see it. And when you have trouble rendering, I'm going to know exactly why. So let's go ahead and open our scene. Error reading file. Sweet.
Excuse me, are the scenes somewhere on the FSO to download?
Yep, they're at the bottom. The whole project folder.
Okay, I just haven't gotten it yet. Awesome, thank you.
So here's our scene. There's a couple of things to know before we get started. Number one, make sure that you select the right camera. There's a couple cameras in here. We have a render camera. And this render camera has a couple bookmarks. So shot 1, shot 2, shot 3. I don't like shot 3. And shot 4. Let's do shot 4. Now, you'd think because we installed RenderMan, we have our RenderMan shelf, we are ready to go. That is not the case. Make sure to go to Windows, go to your Settings and Preferences Plugin Manager, and load the plugin. Scroll down, we'll find it. It's here somewhere. There it is, RenderMan for Maya. Loaded, auto load. Yay! Check over here. If you have RenderMan as an option, you should be good to go. However, there's a couple of more things we got to do. And this comes to that student who is having problems. So, if we have to go to Maya, we have to go to Preferences. Now, you're going to want to go to Rendering. You'll notice this is not say RenderMan. It needs to say RenderMan. A lot of people will actually have it say Arnold. I think my Arnold is disabled, which is good because I hate Arnold. So you want it to say RenderMan, and then, we're not done yet, we have to go to, am I blind? Where is it? RenderMan. We have to tell this spool style RIB. And then we want to go to workflow, and we want to tell it to, yeah, use Maya plugs. Okay, cool, got that one right. And later we'll talk about going over to color management and enabling color management. We are not doing that for this project, but that will be important later, so don't forget about it. Now, we should be ready to render. One would hope. So there's a nifty thing about the newer versions of RenderMan, and that's the fact that we have viewport rendering, so we can click that little R, and it should start rendering in the viewport. Or crash Maya. Ta-da! Let's turn wireframe off. Yeah, the little R up here, not on your keyboard. It's the Pixar R. You can notice it's like in little circles going outward. By the way, there's an image back here in this window, and if you don't set your project, it's not going to be there. So one of the cool things is I can take this bottle and just go, boop. It's going to start rendering over, but now the bottle's going to be over there. Undo, go back over there, bottle. Okay. All right, that's enough viewport rendering. Now, let's talk about IPR. So IPR, you have to right-click, and you can actually tell it what camera to use. So typically, we're going to want to go to RenderCam. By the way, I have had people click on this. This is a little devious little bugger because it will actually toggle on so that when you render, it will only render the object you have selected, and then you'll just see the dome in the background. I know one of my students in Discord had this issue, and I was like, come to the lecture, I will explain it. So, make sure you don't check that. Make sure you're not going here to change your resolution. Go into camera and choose render camera. This is going to bring up the image tool. So the image tool is a little bit more efficient than viewport rendering. Really, viewport rendering I just kind of use to get my light in the right place, and then I use the IPR tool. So here we go. And if we were to change something in, let's go ahead and move that bottle again. So if we were to change something and we move that, it moves the bottle. Now, obviously, this quality of the render with all the little spots is not good enough. We would just have to wait like 6 minutes for it to get good, and we don't have that kind of time right now. So I'll let it clear up a little bit more. And I'll hit stop. There we go. Okay. And the final one is using render current frame. Now, what this one will do is this one will actually just keep going until it finishes, or until I tell it to stop. Now I'm actually, and right down here, so we can see it's 2% done out of 100. It's going to take a while. If you use the render current frame, it will always render from the camera that is selected in the viewport. If you have multiple cameras, it's going to be the last one you had used or had activated. Now, the difference is, if I screw around in my viewport now, it doesn't care. RenderMan doesn't care. It's like, yep, you told me to render what you had a couple minutes ago. What I can do is I can tell it to stop. And I can use the crop tool and say, hey, just render that. And so now it just renders that area. That's actually more useful in IPR. We'll use it a bit later. But this is going to be a lot faster because it only has to deal with this specific area. As you can see, it's already at 15%. Now we can go here and toggle the background. So then we can see our new image on top of our old image. And we could use the slide tool to go, oh, look how it used to be. This is useful when we have reference. We'll do more in the project too. So let's talk a little bit about what you're required to turn in. Now, for lesson 1, we give you reference. Okay, for project 1, oh, thanks, RenderMan. T. Yeah. So for project 1, actually, let me get back to that. I forgot something. So this is the image tool. Let us talk about doing the batch render. To batch render now, what we're going to do, first off, we have to make sure all of our settings are correct. I am going to lower this. You need to go higher than 128. Your max samples, I'm telling you right now, your max samples are going to be higher than 128, but lower than 1,000. And up here, you're going to leave all of this the same. You may increase this to 2, nothing else. And keep them powers of 2. So 526 is not a power of 2. 512 is. So hang on, I'm going to clean this up a little bit. I actually recommend that you guys do what I'm doing right here. Yeah, there we go. And we'll turn beauty on. Denoise, single frame, good. So we're going to do a batch render. Now, before I do this, you guys like spaces? When you make folders, do you like putting spaces in your folder names? So you have not learned the evil of spaces. Software, the technical software that we're using for rendering and lighting, game engines, RenderMan, actually more advanced Maya functions, hates spaces and special characters. So like colons, ampersands, percentage signs, dollar signs, any of that in your file and naming conventions, guess what? Your render's not going to work. And not only that, if you have any spaces in your file path, so let's say I make a folder on my desktop and I name it SAL space projects, and I put my project 1 folder in there, guess what? That's not going to batch render. If I save my file out and I name it SAL space project, that's not going to batch render. This is when you guys start to learn how to use what we call camel case, which is you write without spaces and you capitalize the first letter of every word. Or you can use underscores to kind of be a stand-in for spaces. Underscores are fine. Periods are usually okay, but sometimes they can mean that you're going to put a file extension in, so that can kind of actually screw with the computer. And slashes and backslashes mean that you're actually tell the computer that it's a folder. So if you put a slash in your actual folder name, the computer gets confused because it thinks that it's 2 folders. I've seen that one. That one was weird. But any of this stuff will actually prevent your computer from doing a batch render. And what you'll get, what I like to call 0-second renders, which when we bring up the local queue here in a couple seconds, actually I'll do it right now. So when we go and we do a batch render, this thing shows up and it will do a render. It'll act like it's rendering perfectly normally, but it'll just do it for 0 seconds. You won't get any file. It just goes 0 seconds, done. I did my job, right? So if you did that, you did one of the things that either you have spaces and special characters in your file name, you didn't set your project folder, your project folder doesn't have all the proper folders it needs, or you forgot to set your preferences like we did when we opened Maya. Gabe says underscores are evil. Gabe, you're wrong. Underscores are life, man. I could not survive without underscores. Some of you will notice, like some of the times when I type in Discord, I totally start typing without spaces. It's because I have to do that so much that my brain is just hardwired to think that way. I've started writing letters and then been like, wait, I just wrote 2 sentences and there are no spaces. No, yeah, I'm not kidding. I've been doing this for 10 years. My brain just works differently than normal people's. Just wait till the day that you dream in verts. It'll happen. But as you see, so it's doing its thing. We've got 2 here. We've got the RenderMan Prog and the Denoise. I had another student that I know did not set her preferred renderer or her spool style to RIB. I think it was a her. Because she said that her render queue didn't look like this. She had 3. That's the Maya spool. So we want you using the RIB spool. In certain cases, when there are bugs, we have tried it with the Maya batch and it has worked, but usually RIB is better. Because honestly, we've had more troubles with the Maya spool than the RIB spool. And so this is just kind of rendering. This is me rendering right now. We're waiting. We're waiting. And eventually it's gonna deposit my render here. There's nothing there now, but it will show up there when it starts finishing in another like 3 minutes. Oh man, I was gonna lower my settings so this went faster and I forgot. I was gonna make that like 16. It would have been really fast. Well, now we get a good render. That's good. You guys need at least one good render to look at. So let's talk about your references. So we give you these as sort of a target. Now, for your day scene, we have given you a unfiltered and a filtered. The filtered is what it will look like in the image tool before you apply denoise. So this is sort of like your target. You can look at this and be like, all right, that's what it's supposed to look like before I do my batch render with denoise, and this is what it should look like after. Okay, so you know what you're going for in Maya and then what it should look like after. So we give you one of each. Obviously, there's a fair amount of noise, but over here with the batch, with the denoise and the batch, it looks fine. Now, oh, we actually give you the nighttime too now. I didn't know that. That's cool. So as you can see, noisy, not noisy. So you have to do one nighttime, one daytime, or one daytime, one nighttime, and one MyComp. This is where you get to be creative. So for the MyComp, actually, let's go over here first. You guys are going to take the geometry in your scene, and you're going to go and look up your own reference image. You're going to find an image, and the idea is what we call look and feel, right? So you're trying to match the look and feel of the image. You can move the geometry in the scene, but you are not allowed to move the lights. You are not allowed to move the geometry. You can change the color of the lights, but you can't move them or adjust their intensity. So this is actually an old scene, but I like it because it has that kind of same perspective line. It's pretty good. This is, again, that older scene. Here he matched the focal length pretty well. Okay, this one's really cool, the whole aliens thing. And this one was super fun. This is actually the geometry in the scene. Game of Thrones. Okay, this is the new one. I have too many old ones. You can get rid of some. So this one's kind of simple. Hotel room. Okay, he kind of matched the hotel room. I do want you moving geometry for the most part. This one, creepy lady, creepy hand. Good job. Rearrange the furniture, bedroom. Okay, I get some cooler ones. This one, I really like the way he matched the perspective. I like this one where the lamp is Thor. That was fun. The train. I am not kidding you. This is the geometry in your scene. We check every single piece. That one's really cool, especially for look and feel. It matches it like perfectly. Rock. This one blew me away because I'm like, she modeled this, she cheated. No way she did that. I went in here, I checked every single piece of geometry. These are the keyboards. This is the computer. These are the keyboard keys. These are cables. Like, she totally followed the rules. I couldn't believe it. She got a 100. This one again was really cool. This is all geometry in the bedroom scene. You guys don't get to see this unless you watch the campus lecture, but there's a video series rendered from Unity, which is a game engine called Atom. and there are 3 videos that are rendered in Unity doing a cutscene, small short story. And they're really cool, and they're all rendered in game engine, in Unity. So if you want to go look them up, it's a video series called Atom. You can find it on YouTube. Atom is in the person's name, not the atom, not the molecule. So this is your MyComp. This is what you're supposed to do. And these 3, these couple students have kind of raised the bar. That's what you got to try and match. The Assassin's Creed does not use Unity. I think the newer ones were done in Unreal, but the older ones were proprietary. Oh, hey, and our render's done. So I can go back and show you what our render looks like. Nope. That's the scene. Images. Here we go. Here's our filtered EXR. Yeah, that doesn't work anymore. I used to be able to show you what it looked like unfiltered. And we can see what it looks like unfiltered. It looks like that. Now, I am going to tell you, this is too noisy. I can see little splotchies over here and little splotchies over here. Little splotchies like, oh, right here, it's really bad. This will not get you an A. This will get you like a B at best. Because I rendered at 128 samples. Telling you, you need more than that. Now, I've got my rendered image. Cool, I'm done, right? Nope, got to put in a template. So we give you these Photoshop templates. Let's close RenderMan. I don't need you open. So what you got to do, you got to go over here. Got the template open. I'm going to go back into the Maya project. We got to open our EXR with Photoshop. Alpha channel, very important. Alpha channel. Leave that check to alpha channel, not transparency. Actually, it will be transparency by default. Change it to alpha channel. Super important. Otherwise, you're not going to get the image in the windows. So copy your whole thing, and then we're going to paste it into here. I actually want that up there. Okay. Then we got to move it. Oh, it's too tall, too high. See? If we look in here, it's got to go down. And Mr. Saxon is super picky about this, so make sure you do it right, or I am going to take off 3 points. Got to get it in the border. Now, obviously, it needs to be the same up here, so we have to go down here and be like, okay, we did the 3rd one. Nope, we didn't do the 3rd one. We did the 2nd one. Nope, we didn't do the 2nd one. We did the 4th one. There we go. Looks all right, except it needs more samples. And then we got to make sure that we put in all the correct information. What was our samples? It was 128. So these are 1, 1, and this is also 1. And then obviously we need to change the watermark. So it is our last name and then the term ID. Sweet. Now we also need to make sure that this is at 15%. On this one, it is at 15%, but I'm telling you, it's not always going to be there. Tony likes to change this randomly to mess with you guys. So make sure it's at 15%. All right, that's cool. Save it out as a targa. And then we have to use the format on FSO. I think it's BATSBY. Naming conventions are important. I don't remember if that's the actual name. Oh wait, this is. Yeah, it's close, whatever. That was pretty close. So this information's on FSO, so you will have access to it there. Nope. Where the crap? Oh. 24. Oh, where the heck did you just save? I swear. Computers. What? How did you save there, jerk? There's our render. Yay! This is what you submit to me with your Maya file. Okay, no more templates. In fact, I'm going to close Photoshop. Okay, so night scene, day scene, and your MyComp. Couple of things about the MyComp. Make sure to match the focal length of your camera. So let's go into Maya. Let's select your camera, go to the attribute editor. Angle of view, by default, this is close to 30. So if we lower it, apparently I can't lower the, oh yeah. So if we lower it, whoa! As you see, like I'm not moving the camera, but I'm getting a different perspective. Oh wait, that's wrong. Focal length, right here. 60 is kind of what we are used to seeing. By default, this is 30 when you make a new camera. In fact, let's make one. Create camera. Why am I in the floor? I don't know. So you'll notice this room looks a little bit different. That is because of the focal length. If we set this back to 60, this is what we were used to seeing. Yet it started out at 35. Why is that? Well, focal length. Now, there are a number of focal lengths to pay attention to. Anything less than 2.5 is fisheye. It looks super weird. Wide angle lens is actually something that we're used to seeing. In magazines, in photographs, a lot of photographers use this for environments, specifically with real estate, because it tends to make things look a lot bigger than it actually is. This is what Maya defaults to. Keep that in mind. Normal human eye focal length is 45 to 65. I think it's actually like 52 or something, but it kind of varies from person to person. But this is where we're used to seeing things. So notice over here, this is wide angle. This is what we're used to seeing. Or maybe probably more like that. This is a default Maya camera. This is fisheye. Woo! It's so weird. And then we have what's telephoto, which is anything above 60. That's super zoomed in. So just be sure to kind of pay attention to that when you're doing your assignment. What if we exceed the reference, ramp it down, and try to match the noise? Gabe, what? Lesson 1. We're still in lesson 1. What are you talking about? Oh, you mean what if you have more samples than your reference and you do a better job? I'm not going to take off points. If you have more samples. If you're saying, what if I get, for my MyComp, I go out and find a noisy image and try and match the noise in the image, don't do that. I'm not going to like that. But if for parts 1 and 2, you actually put a little bit more samples in, I'll be fine. Actually, I take that back. I will be fine within reason. If you guys are going above 1,000, then your renders are going to take way too long, and I am going to take off points. But I'm telling you, don't go above 1,000. See, guys, because rendering is this delicate balance between time and quality. The more samples you use, you get a better quality render, which is what we want. You need a certain level of quality, or else your render's not going to look bad. Your commercial or your movie or whatever you're trying to do, it's going to look bad. Can't look bad. But as an artist, we are always fighting against time. So we need to do the best render at the lowest amount of samples that we can, because we need the time, right? So we need the best render as quick as possible, which means that we need our samples to be as low as possible, but still get a good quality render. It's a delicate balance, and that's what I'm trying to teach you with Project One. All right, finally, let's talk about the lighting part of the lighting class. Project 2. Let's see. Oh, wait, I got to set project. Grr. I don't like it. I just know I got to do it. All right. Boo. The funny thing is, when you get to Project 2, you're going to notice your renders go way faster. All right, so Project 2, we are finally really lighting. So I am going to open the image tool, and I am going to go to File, Open with the image tool. And then Lectures, Essay. Oh, that's Lecture 2. We want this reference. This one. Okay, so we can actually bring images into the image tool, which I didn't show you yet because it wasn't useful. So here in Project 2, our job, besides doing everything that we learned about in Project 1, which is rendering with samples, batch rendering, denoise, we are going to take one light and we are going to match the reference that we are given using light direction light intensity. So light direction is position and rotation. Light intensity, light color, light contrast, which has to do with the scale of the light, or maybe another setting, and light hardness, which is the quality of the shadows. That's our goal. So this means we get to make our own lights finally. Now, you're going to want to make sure that these have the right material on them. So they have Lamberts. That's not what we want. So select it and click on this button here, the star with the circle. This is a Pixar surface. Click on it, and now we have Pixar surface assigned to it. So if I was to go into shading mode and make this green, they'd be green. I don't want it to be green. I want it to be value 0.5 gray for this assignment, at least. So we need this. Well, to do that, we're going to need a light. We're going to start with the rectangle light. I will do the rectangle light so you guys can see how it's done. You have to do 5 lights: rectangle, disc, distant, sphere, and a MyComp. It's the exact same thing as in project 1. Go find a reference image, something you like, and then you are going to match the look and feel with lighting. You can use the geometry in the scene. Don't model anything, but you can duplicate and move and rotate geometry in the scene. So right click on the light, go to rectangle light, and we have our first light. Yay! If you press T, you get a little aim point. I like to use the aim point. Here we are. Oh, for crying. Actually, this is what I like to do. Panels side by side. Panels, perspective. Yeah. So we have our reference. I'm going to move it over here briefly. And now, boop. Wow, that's super helpful. Intensity 4, intensity 8, intensity 16, intensity 32. Starting to get something. Great. 64. 128. 256. Okay. Now I know that's not right, but I'm going to pretend it's right. I swear that this thing lies to me so much now. So I know this is top. We have to match the position of our reference. So if you notice, I'm trying to match this shadow and this shadow mostly. Okay, so we've got the position right, but obviously it's not looking right. So this is about all we can do with the real-time rendering camera. So what I'm going to do from here on out is I'm actually going to be working mostly here in the image tool. So I can press T and that'll lock it at the top. So no matter what, it's always at the top of my screen. You know, if it was my screen had a stack of papers on it. So if I right click and I go to camera, again, don't click on that. Go to camera, we can select our render camera. And we can see, that's not exactly the same as what our render was it? In the viewport. Now I can select this, and then click on this, and I can use the slide. Oop. Actually, hold on. Resize window to fit image. Yeah. Use the slide tool now. So I can see, okay. Oh, my position is slightly off. I'm going to use that aim point again. That way? That way. That way? That way. Okay, that's about right. It's a little noisy, but we'll get it. Yeah, that looks, my shadows are all in the correct spot. So intensity is a little bit hard right now with that color, but I think I need to go lower. Nope, I'm wrong. Now, it really does require a lot of intensity. 256, so we'll stay there. It's funny because I probably had this looking in the viewport, it probably would have been 512. So the viewport, it probably would have been this. But I was just looking for the position, so. All right, now let's match the color. So go over here to color, actually select the, let's see if this works. Go for a nice warm spot, and that didn't work at all. To be fair, I didn't expect it to. Kill that. Try it one more time. Oh no, it's reading the image underneath. Let's see if we can get this. Double click to get the advanced one. No, it's still reading my other render. That's awesome. Oh, wait, no, it's reading the right thing. There we go. Okay. Sweet. So we got the right color. We want to make sure we're always at the max value because light is not white value. Might have color in it, but it always has white. All right. So let's kick off another IPR. And notice there's another image in here, but it's still only considering my background for the slide tool. Okay, so we're seeing I need a little bit more saturation. There we go, that's looking pretty close. By the way, something to keep in mind, because we're using IPR render, we're using a different number for our samples. We're using 64 instead of 128. That's okay, because IPR we want to be fast, so it may actually be advantageous to like lower this even more. I mean, it's going to get us a lot more noise, but we could. Okay, so we want this shadow to be a little bit harder, or no, a little bit softer actually. It's got all that noise. Gross. So what we can do to change the shadow softness is we can actually increase the size of our light. Let's do it a little bit ridiculously. So let's move our size to 3. Oh, hang on, forgot one thing. When we do this, we need to go into the light and go to advanced, and we're going to go to normalize. This makes it so normally in the real world, if we increase the size of our light, we would get more light. This just disables that to kind of be like artist easy mode. So it's like, okay, your light is softer, which means your shadows are now softer, which is too soft. See the difference? Actually, let's look at our previous render. See the difference in shadows? So that's clearly too soft. Now, what we'll do is we'll just change the scale of our lights back to 1.2. And that is looking pretty good. In fact, we could even go lower. We could be like, okay, I want it to be a bit sharper, actually. 0.8. 0.8 is definitely too low. I think Mr. Saxon might have fooled us. I think this might actually be a 1. So notice, it does get a little bit softer as the image tool kind of pumps more samples in, and we get a cleaner render. So it's starting to look more and more like the reference. Now, one thing I'm noticing, this back wall is too dark, so I would actually probably increase the intensity and move the light out. But I'm not going to nitpick right here. You guys need to do that when you're doing your demo. And Mr. Saxon, if you watch Campus Lecture 2, which won't actually be available until Thursday, because today was the day of the first lecture. If you watch it, he's going to go into like a full demo on a couple of these. So you'll get to see a lot more in-process full demo of the projects if you watch the campus lecture. So, but that's something to look out for. This back wall is too dark. The floor is perfect. The back wall is too dark. So I may need to move my light up further away and increase the intensity. But we're not going to do that now. What I do want to do is I'm going to actually kill this with the stop button there. And I am going to do a full render, but I'm going to use the crop tool. So I want to see this shadow, actually, this shadow, but I want to see it just rendered 100%. So hit R real quick. I want it to use 128 samples. Oh no, it's using the stupid. Stop. Got to be in the right camera. R. And as you can see, that one cleaned it up real quick. So I can tell right now that compared to here, well, my light is a little off, but that shadow softness is pretty good, but I am going to need more samples. So I will actually go in here and I'm going to crank this up to 256. And we will try to render again. There we go. That is looking really good. So that's probably fine. Denoise will catch the rest of it. So we're actually done with this. We could do a batch render. Again, like I said, there is that little thing with the back wall. It's totally something that you guys are going to need to pay attention to, but I am going to go ahead and ignore that. And besides, I like to give it where you guys have to at least make some changes based on what I do to complete the project. I don't want you following along and just getting all the answers. So we're going to go ahead and we will do a batch render on this one. Oh, apparently I'm actively rendering. What? I am? Stop. You're going to notice this one is way faster. So while this renders, I'm going to be right back because I really have to use the restroom. So I'll be back in like 10 seconds, guys, before the render, I swear. Oh, I didn't beat the render. I'm back. Okay, so in here, let's really quickly just look at our render. It's all pretty. No! Damn it. Always do that. All right, well. Render cam. Version 2. RenderMan, batch render. I believe I did that. Okay, so other than that, I wanted to talk to you guys about how the other lights work. So we're going to use the outliner here, and I'm going to take this rectangle light, I'm going to hide it, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to kick out a distant light. So the distance light is an interesting light. The distance light is basically the sun. So the fun thing about the distance light is I can move the distance light and nothing happens until I rotate it. Then all of a sudden there be light. But I can scale the distance light, I can move it, and it makes no difference. The only difference is when it's rotated. What direction is it going? That's your light direction. It's its rotation. And you got to kind of angle it so it doesn't get the dome in there. The other fun thing about the distance light is because scale doesn't matter, we can't get softer shadows with scale. So what we have to do is we have to change this angle of extent. Also, your intensity is going to be super high because it is the sun. So if we change this angle of extent, Let's say we take it from 0.5 to 1. Right? Normalize. We're going to get some pretty hard shadows. We make it 2, and they start to soften, I think, as you go above 1. Yeah. But the lower they are, 0.5, you get some pretty hard shadows. And for the most part, the sun shadows are hard until you get to like sunset. So at sunset, you're going to see numbers where it's going to be like, okay, 6. But then obviously you're going to have to change the color so that it's more sunset-y colors, right? A little bit more intensity. Nope. So that's that. But it's sunset, so it should be like this, but then the wall of the dome will get in the way. Again, keep in mind that if we go over here and we do an IPR, it's going to look different. Wow, it looks a lot different. So now we need more saturation. And maybe a little bit less intensity. There we go. Gabe is very cleverly talking about temperature setting. So we will get into temperature on Project 4. But yes, we actually shouldn't be messing with color. We should be messing with temperature. But yes, there is a whole thing in here that we'll talk about on Project 4. So that is the distance light. And it is honestly a pretty easy light. By the way, you may help see me refer to these lights by their legacy names. A rectangle light used to be called an area light. A distance light used to be a directional light. A spherical light used to be called a point light. These are their legacy names that they've been used in other softwares. And RenderMan just has to be special, so they have their own light names. So they're called different things, but you may hear me call them different by their legacy names. So distant light is usually called a directional light. Next, the point light, our spherical light. Oh, wrong place. Sphere. So this one is kind of the opposite of the directional because the rotation doesn't matter, but the scale and the position matter hugely. So let's kick off another IPR. So as you can see, as we move around, it is drastically going to change. That's because this is like a candle or a light bulb. and it will cast light out from every direction. So we're going to see shadows sort of scatter. And if we were to scale it up, oh, hang on, normalize. Okay, I guess it doesn't really matter if you got normalized. But so that's the point light. And then finally, we're going to talk about the, what is it? It's a disc light. Spotlight is what we normally call it. So this is honestly the same light as the rectangle light, but there is one thing we want you to do more with the disc light than the rectangle light. We want you to start using a, what is it? This stuff. So first off, I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of point this light here and do an IPR render. It's going to be too dark because it always is. And so we're going to increase the intensity to 16 or 32 or 64. Come on. Or 128. So the big difference with this light is that we want you guys to start using the cone angle. By default, this is at 90, and it works like a rectangle light. But if we start to lower this, it's not working the way I expected it to work. So as we lower this, we get this sort of sphere that looks like a spotlight. And so this is what we want you to do with the disc light, the spotlight. And cone softness will kind of soften that edge. So that's really the only difference. In fact, I could make this turn on for the rectangle light. The only difference is it would be a square shape instead of a sphere cone. You know, guys, I didn't get to any cookies tonight. That's my fault. You guys were answering questions, so we are gonna get to my last part of the lecture, the part where I have you guys ask questions, and I'll give away some cookies for people who ask questions. But don't forget, open lab hours. So the open lab is going to be Friday, 1 to 5. Frank is going to be on GoToTraining. He should also be on Discord at that time, and he'll be available to sort of answer your questions and do screen shares and that sort of thing. There is a special GoToTraining for it. And my office hours are Monday and Thursday. I will definitely be available on Discord then to be helping. I'm on Discord most of the time. If I'm in the office and I'm not distracted with grading or doing office work, I'm just on Discord to help. You may see that, sometimes I'm online, but I'm not very responsive. It's because I'm doing other work. But if you at me, I will try and get back to you when I can. That's the powerful thing about Discord. If I'm asleep, you can at me and I can answer you back the next day. Or somebody else can get to you before me. It's, you can get help any time of the day. All right. We didn't check our batch render, did we? Oh, or we checked our first one. There we go. It's beautiful. So, any questions? I actually brought an oatmeal cookie because somebody mentioned it on Discord. Mary, I went over the things that should help you because I believe you were having 0-second renders, right? You were having 0-second renders, correct? The background is not rendering. Oh, you were that person. Okay. You have this selected. Render selected objects only. And you get a cookie. Actually, guys, leave the min samples at 0 because RenderMan makes it easy for you. The min samples are automatically increased to the square root of the max samples. So you don't actually have to worry about those. Questions? Corgi questions. But here you go. There's your cookie. Give you this one too. You can't with the corgi. You better get used to the corgi. There are a lot of corgis in my slides. That one's an old one though. That was when she was like 2 years old. She's like 9 now. Well, if you have questions, there's always the Discord. All right, everybody. So we're going to end the recording because that kind of brings us to a close for this week. Please make sure to use the Discord. Make sure to go to the Open Labs. We will be available to help you out as much as we can. But we won't have another lecture until next Tuesday. So I will see you then. Oh, and watch the campus lectures. But I will see you all next time.